Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Fawzia Shah. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and we are going to be discussing the invisible scars, the legacy of the narcissistic parents. Let's get started. Children that grew up in homes with narcissistic parents often find themselves having difficulty in relationships. They have difficulty making decisions or being in touch with their emotions. And sometimes they overreact, and sometimes they don't know how they really feel. They feel insignificant, they feel shame, they feel unworthy, not good enough, that it's always their fault, which also is a trigger. It becomes a trigger later on, but we'll talk about that. They often feel very insignificant. They feel like they are not important, that they don't matter. Their needs don't matter. Because a narcissist parent is going to expect that you orbit around them. And what do I mean by that, orbiting around them? In other words, you were made to believe that in order for you to be loved, that you have to meet your parents' needs. In other words, you have to provide them with a lot of validation, a lot of admiration, a lot of attention, compliments, putting them on a pedestal. But a lot of times when you are not doing that, the parent will then use rage, guilt, shame to manipulate you into doing what they expect from you, and that is to supply them with admiration and validation and attention and meeting their needs. So they're very dismissive of your needs, and they're very competitive, and there's no way you can win with them. That's the feeling that you have, is that you cannot compete with them because you cannot win. Another thing is that you find your parents are very immature and very childlike. And that is where the role reversal starts, where the child is expected to act like the parent and the parent is acting like the child. It's a very huge task for a small child to take on. And the scar from this is felt way into adulthood, into relationships with their partners, relationship with their own children. They're very envious and very jealous. And I've talked about this thing in another video, but here I'm talking about parents. So if the father and the mother are divorced, and the father is expecting the child to give up their friends and come and spend time with them and orbit around them, that child is not going to know how to have healthy relationships with other people because they have not been given the opportunity to learn a basic developmental need on intimacy, on relationships. How do you have relationships with other people if you've not given that opportunity? And normally, this is a need that we start in very early on in our lives, playing with other kids. And when we run into some kind of problem, we run to our parents and they kind of help us navigate how to let go of some things and how to manage those conflicts in a small way. But the process starts very early on, and then again in adolescence. But if the parent is expecting you to give up your developmental needs, your need to have friendships, your need to be autonomous, your need to have fun and start to make decisions, even though they may not be all the right decisions, but it takes time. And how many adults do you know that are 100% on their decisions? Not many. So as an adolescent, you did not get the opportunity to make decisions for yourself. Instead, the decisions were made for you. Then you're going to have difficulty in adulthood with making decisions and trusting yourself, because you would most likely be very indecisive and second-guessing yourself. Narcissistic parents do not have boundaries. In other words, if you're in the bathroom and you want the door shut, the narcissistic parent may not allow that. Not all narcissistic parents, this is not true about all narcissistic parents. I mean, they are covert and overt narcissists and the malignant narcissists, but we see in adulthood people struggling with relationship issues, with their sense of self, with decision-making, or even being aware of their feelings. Some of them actually don't even remember the childhood. There's no memory of that. And that's because they really did not have the childhood. What they did was they actually circled around their parents, orbited around their parents, and became their caretakers. And so one of the things that you will have to do is to grieve the loss of not having what you needed or not getting what you needed in your childhood, grieving that loss. And it is a lifelong process. It's a grieving is going to be a lifelong process that you will be doing as you move along. You will have emotional triggers. If you were blamed for the way you were disciplined, then if you got blamed in a relationship with someone and they were blaming you for it, that meant all of a sudden the trigger comes up. And all those feelings that are inside you when you encountered being blamed for being disciplined by the parents, all those are going to surface. And it creates a loop. The feelings and the thoughts, the emotional dysregulation, it creates a loop, and you're not able to see through clearly. So it is important to trust yourself. But overcoming the abuse by the narcissistic parents, you must start to trust yourself. Trust your decisions. Validate yourself. Acknowledge when you've done something that you're very proud of. Doesn't matter if anybody else thinks that or not, because if you grew up with a narcissistic parent or parents, they are not going to rejoice in your accomplishments. Because remember, I mentioned about the competition. So they are not happy that you are accomplishing all of these things. Instead, they're going to be very critical and maybe even put your accomplishment down. So start listening to your own self, trusting your own self. Make decisions, and even if they're not the right decisions, it's okay. Yes, it's something you learn. Decision-making is a learning process. We learn by making decisions that may not turn out to be too good, but you have to learn how to make good decisions. Setting boundaries with yourself and people around you, and especially with your parents. So let's just say that they are living in another country and they move right next door to you. And then they start guilt tripping you if you don't go and spend time with them, and make you feel really bad that they came all the way here for you. And here you are busy with your friends or busy with your work. And God forbid if you went for some exercise. That's where you have to set the boundaries. And you have to be very firm in those boundaries and not personalize what they're saying, because you remember that they are the ones who had you revolving around them, because for a narcissistic parent sees their children as an extension of themselves. They don't see you as an individual in your own right, and that you have needs and wants, and that's what the parent is there for, is to meet those needs. Instead, they see the child there to meet their needs. So trust your own self, setting boundaries, and realizing and recognizing and becoming aware of what it was like in childhood, and identifying the feelings that are associated to those traumatic events and releasing them. I hope that you liked this video, and if you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. And I'm wishing you the best. Thank you.